Do you miss the most experimental era of video games? I mean the 90s? I think video games are still being experimental. Maybe not at AAA. I was saying that a lot of video games are ripping off other successful games and have been doing so for the past 10 years. But I also said that there are a lot of new ideas and experiments out there that have been successful. If you focus on those and pay attention to those, you're going to be like, oh, there's still a lot of experiments being released nowadays. I mean, companies need to experiment more nowadays because of that. Because everything seems to be a copy of a copy of a copy. So yeah, it's hard to find originality nowadays in all entertainment. Do you think these remakes and remasters like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Persona 3 Reload are lazy cash grabs to cash in nostalgia and hamper the original game's source material? Yes, pretty much. But, you know, I'll give you this, the good thing about a remake and a remaster, the good thing about both is that they're bringing back an old game. And some of these games, not all of them, some of these games are inaccessible, they are kind of expensive and hard to find, and they're kind of exclusive to some systems. So yeah, I like remakes and remasters, but for the sake of bringing the games back to not precisely to a modern audience, but to today's audience. Today's audience is just as well you and me, right? And kids and all ages, right? But yeah, I think a lot of people, no matter their age or generation, are too lazy to go back, or they don't have money to buy a PSP, for example, and get the game physical because it's expensive, right? It's just better to wait for a remaster. But yeah, I mean, they are capitalizing on nostalgia. That's what they're doing. And instead of focusing on new games, all they do is focusing on the last games, trying to bring them back. So there's both good things and a good side and a bad side to that. Yeah, that's my answer. What time periods are underrepresented in JRPGs? Well, the thing about time periods is that JRPG story writers and or developers always take a lot of liberties. Like, I just reviewed Banner of the Maid, and it takes place during the French Revolution, and of course they took a lot of liberties. For instance, the biggest liberty they took is that Pauline Bonaparte, the main character, I mean, she was never a soldier and she didn't fight on any war whatsoever, so that's pretty much taking a huge liberty in there. But we all know, we've been playing JRPGs for years, we already know they take a lot of liberties. They mix a lot of fantasy and fiction with non-fiction and historical facts. So there, at least it's fantasy, right? I mean, at least it's fiction. It's well-intended, not ill-intended fiction. Unlike entertainment nowadays, people, you know, all these woke bitches trying to change history for no fucking reason, even though that never happened. Okay, at least JRPG developers aren't trying to change real historical facts. What are the chances that Sony's portable system will be a Switch copy? I don't know, man. I hope they don't do that. But the Vita was... Okay, the PS Vita was not like that, but you could play your PS Vita games on your PS3 and PS4, right? Every now and then. With some games, there was like a cross-save feature, that was the term. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sony will rip off Nintendo. Like, seriously. What else can they do? What are your favorite JRPG world maps? Damn. You know, I really like world maps when they're easy to traverse, when they have no random encounters, and when they're like beautifully looking. I don't really care that much about the graphics, but the point of an overworld is to admire all the graphics from like a big point of view, right? I like that. Someone saying Final Fantasy IX. Yeah, I guess it's well, you're saying that because of the music. And this guy is not asking the music, he's just asking about the design of the world maps themselves, not the music. If we're talking about the music, oh come on, yeah, Final Fantasy IX has one of the best overworld themes of all time. Near Gestalt 2, of course, right? But the design, well, Xenoblade, someone's saying Xenoblade, that's sort of like an open world game. I guess, yeah, it counts. It needs to count, right? But I also think that's also like cheating, because that's like 80% of the game, the world map, right? I don't know. I think it's just better to focus on games that were like traditional style, where you just go from town to town or dungeon and dungeon, and there's an overworld in between, a small overworld in between those areas. I think that's what my donator is asking. Yeah. So surprisingly, none of the Final Fantasy games, to be honest. Super Mario RPG has a really good one, but it's menu based. You don't traverse it manually. It's just there. It's pretty looking. It's good though, you know. But I think I prefer the classic overworld map. But it's hard to find some overworlds that don't have random encounters from back in the day. It's hard. But yeah, kind of a hard question to answer. I had to choose one. In terms of interface and menu-based interface, it will be Odin Sphere. Fucking beautiful game. Obviously, the world map is beautiful. Well, somebody already said Super Mario RPG. What else? I guess, well, the Shin Megami Tensei 5 world map was kind of thematic. Well, it's also kind of small, open world-ish, right? So, oh man, what else is there? Traditional overworld world map, I guess I will go with, no, this one has a lot of random encounters. Shit. Oh man. Oh, there's gotta be one. Valkyrie Profile is also menu based, but I mean, in the first Valkyrie Profile, you could like fly and watch all the world from above, from the skies, and fly around to every location. It wasn't pretty looking. I mean, the feeling was awesome that you were flying with Lenneth, and the music, oh my god, right? But the graphics down there looked kind of bland and boring, so that can't be my answer. Damn. The Suikoden games because of the music, but there's also random encounters, so no. Damn. Hard question, man. I don't think I can choose a favorite right now. Chrono Cross, the Overworld? Yes, you're right, but it's too small, don't you think? I mean, it's too small. I love the overworld of Chrono Cross, don't take me wrong, and it's beautiful, and you can walk around at your pace with no random encounters, but I think it's too small. Baten Kaitos is also beautiful. Fucking beautiful graphics in there. Ni no Kuni, oh yeah, I don't like Ni no Kuni. I'm not a fan of the game, but oh man, yeah. The overworld was like gorgeous. Ni no Kuni 2 also had a gorgeous looking overworld, but Ni no Kuni 1 was more special. Yeah. Have you played Crosscode or Transistor? Yeah, I've covered the games a couple of times in this channel. Crosscode, I couldn't get into it after a while. I put like 5 or 6 hours into it, and the puzzles just destroyed it for me. Not because the puzzles were hard, but because there were just way too many puzzles, man. Way too fucking many puzzles, and I got tired of it. But great game though. I really like the game. Take away the puzzles or reduce the amount of puzzles, and the game is one of the best indie RPGs ever. Transistor though was very hard to get into. I never finished it. I liked its ideas. I liked its complexity. I liked its story and characters. But the battle system was just so complicated, man. So convoluted. Pretty hard game to get into. But it's a good game. Pretty original game. Do you think there should be another East versus Trails game like the one on the PSP with all the characters from Crossbell, Cold Steel, and Daybreak? Yes, and developed by Arc System Works, please. Or Psy Games, the developers of Grand Blue. Either of those two companies, man. Or even Aqua Plus. They made some really good fighting games. Yes, I think there should be another fighting game. I want a fighting game based on everything. A fighting game based on Shin Megami Tensei. A fighting game based on Fire Emblem, fighting game based on Tales, fighting game based on East vs. Trails. Yes, I know there's a fighting game based on Tales, but it's kind of lame on the PSP, only in Japan. Yeah, man. Do you think the 7th generation PS3 and Xbox 360 was the worst era for JRPGs? No. I think the worst era for JRPGs was the 3rd generation. NES. Because there were barely any, and most of them were kind of hard to play and get into, even back then. Yeah, they're classics, and they laid the basis for all the JRPGs we love nowadays, right? But it was a really rough era for the genre. It was just beginning. It was just in its earliest stages. I think that's the worst era for JRPGs. And then the second generation, well, there were no JRPGs in there. There were RPGs, just not JRPGs. No. On the second generation, no. The oldest JRPGs appeared on the NES era in computer systems from the third generation. Or maybe they were on the second generation, but the NES was already out. I mean, the third generation was just starting, right? Anyway, or one could argue that we are slowly entering the worst era of JRPGs, the worst generation because of all the political bullshit. But I don't know. I love the PS3/360 era. Sure, it was a little bit weaker than the PS2 era, or PS1, or PS4 even, but call it the worst. Calling it the worst, I don't know, man. I love that era. Legend of Legacy has a pretty interesting soundtrack. Yeah, speaking about Legend of Legacy, the remaster is coming out in a couple of months, I think. Or no, will be released in March, yeah. I'm getting a copy of it. Hopefully, my biggest fear with Legend of Legacy is that it's not a great game. It failed for a reason back on the 3DS, and there was a lot of problems with it, so I don't know if the remaster will have those problems fixed, or at least some of them. We'll see what happens, but if it's the same game, just with upscaled graphics, it's gonna fail again. It wasn't a great game, it wasn't a bad game, but it wasn't a great game back then, so hopefully they fix some of these issues. What are those issues? First and foremost, the whole point of the game is to complete the maps. To complete them, you gotta walk on every goddamn corner of every single location. And it's a pain in the ass because, one, it's naturally a pain in the ass. The idea sounds crazy. And two, even if it wasn't crazy, the amount of encounters killed it. There are no random encounters, you can see the enemies, but it's so, in the original version, it was so fucking hard to escape from them. You run just a little and they chase after you, and they reach you in like 2 seconds. Horrible decision. Hopefully they fix that. Those two things need to be gone from this remaster to make it work, because everything else was fine. Storytelling, battle system, the music, the world, everything is fine. Just those two fucking things killed Legend of Legacy back then. Hopefully they fix that. Or at the very least, just make the enemy AI a little bit dumber, or make it easier to run away from them or to evade them, so you can complete the map and have fun completing the damn map. That's the one thing that I'm hoping it was fixed in Legend of Legacy. Because, if it's not fixed, I guarantee you that the game is gonna fail again. I don't even know, not that I'm against this remaster, but I don't even know why they decided to remaster this game. Why NIS America decided to. I mean, there's plenty of other JRPGs that are much better games that desperately need a remaster. But no, out of their asses, they said, how about Legend of Legacy? Oh, sure. The game that failed. Let's remaster that one. Jesus, I mean, out of all your fucking games, Legend of Legacy? But maybe they remastered the game, fixing the issues that made it fail in the first place, and now this will be like the definitive version of it to play. Hopefully. What indie game disappointed you the most of all time? Indivisible. Always. Not a single indie. A lot of indie games have disappointed me. Some of them greatly, but nothing comes close to Indivisible. That was the biggest indie disappointment of my life. Too fucking unbalanced, too fucking difficult, too fucking convoluted. A lot of unnecessary restrictions and battle mechanics that I don't know, man. I really wanted to like that game, man. Broke my heart. Damn. Yeah, Indivisible is probably the most disappointing indie RPG I played. Crosscode wasn't disappointing, but the puzzles, like I was saying before, killed it for me. There was just too many of them, and that's another game that I really wanted to like and finish. But I wouldn't call Crosscode disappointing, more like it wasn't for me. More like I didn't know what I was getting into. I knew the game had puzzles, but I didn't know there were going to be so freaking many of those puzzles. Like 80% of the game are the freaking puzzles, man. It's really annoying, to be honest. Kills the flow of the game kills the excitement for it, and eventually you get bored and frustrating with it. So, did it disappoint me personally? Yeah, but overall disappointing? No. Indivisible, though, is another story. It's just, oh my god. It has its fans. A lot of people love the game. I'm not one of them. Disappointed the shit out of me in a much bigger scale than Crosscode. Tears of Avia was also another one. It started off kind of boring, then it got better, and then it got really fucking boring again. And I was doing a full playthrough of it on Twitch, and I gave up after part 7. I fought a boss, underestimated the boss. I could have kicked his ass, but I was like, man, I was just playing just for the sake of playing, just because I paid like $7 for it. So I wanted to get my money back at least. Yeah, Tears of Avia definitely turned out to be such a big disappointment. Like, man, but you can't compare that to Indivisible. Considering Indivisible, I mean, the game was supposed to be great. I mean, it has some great fucking ideas, great interface, great controls, great graphics, great visuals, great story, ruined by its battle mechanics and the lack of respawning enemies, and so many problems with that game. Any thoughts on the Caligula Effect games? Not a fan. I fucking hate the music in those games. It just keeps playing this idle music during battle in both games. It ruins it for me personally. If you guys like idle music, I think the second one is a game that I can recommend. The first one is full of problems, convoluted battle system. You spend a lot of time in school, you don't know what to do or where to go. Fuck Caligula Effect, the first one. The second game, it's better. It's definitely better. I do recommend it. I didn't finish it, and I never will because fuck the music. But if you like idle music, you will probably like it more than I did. Which game is worse, the Caligula Effect Omega, Quintet, or Time and Eternity? Definitely Time and Eternity. Thank you, Omas. Yeah, look, the Caligula Effect, the original game, I don't think it's a bad game. It's just I didn't like it, I couldn't get into it, and it has some bad ideas. But I don't think it's terrible, right? It's still, I mean, understanding what you have to do and how to do it, you do it and you enjoy it, I guess, if you like idle music, right? Omega Quintet is all about idle music, and that killed the game for me. But I remember Omega Quintet had an interesting battle system. It was good. And some of the music during battle was great too. So it's not that terrible. Whereas Time and Eternity is fucking terrible on every single area. Even the music. So definitely far worse game, man. Anyway, if you have a time machine, what games will you buy? Will you buy when they were not expensive as they are today? Ooh boy, I will go back and... Okay. First of all, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't sell some of my games. Like the special editions of Art and Elico 1 and 2 and Mana Khemia 1 and 2. Or my special edition of Persona 2 Innocent Sin on the PSP. I wouldn't sell that. My dot hack games, man. All 4 of them. And I got them for like dirt cheap back in the day, man. Jesus, man. I wouldn't sell those. Definitely not. And what else? But if I could go back and buy games that I didn't buy, I would buy Trails in the Sky on the PSP. I saw it for like, well, it was 60 Canadian dollars, but I could have gotten a deal. I could have gotten Trails in the Sky complete in box for like 45 maybe US dollars. And I didn't buy it, like a fucking idiot. I would go back in time and buy Code of Princess on the Nintendo Switch. Fuck, man, I missed my chance. Again, it was kind of cheap. It was 40 Canadian dollars, which is the equivalent of 30 US dollars. And that's a great price. That was a great price back then. Nowadays, the game goes for like 100. But yeah, that's one of them. Well, there was a copy of Vanguard Bandits, but it was already kind of expensive. It was like, well, how much was it? Like 120 Canadian dollars? But still, I don't know. I don't know if I will pay that much for it. I don't know. But maybe I will look for it. Yeah, if I had a time machine, I will go back to 2005 maybe, or 10. And I will buy all of those games from the PS1, SNES era that I know for a fact will become expensive in this day and age. How's that for an answer, huh?